helicopter suddenly appeared out of the smoke, bombing the forest with burning gasoline gel. Flames danced and crackled through the brush. It was hard to believe we were filming in Newfoundland. It was harder still to believe that these were our own forestry people, setting the woods on fire. What madness is this, turning our forest into a black and barren wasteland? Well, it's not madness at all, for in the burned-over country, millions of tiny seedlings are planted. It's simply part of an ambitious attempt to renew our sickly, infested forest. Across Canada, the pulp and paper industry is struggling for survival. Here in western Newfoundland, times are especially tough. Bowaters is up for sale. Hundreds have lost their jobs. The forests here have been devastated by insects, but that's only part of the problem. For generations, we've been cutting and hauling pulpwood with little thought for the future. In the beginning, there was lots of land, plenty of trees. Silviculture, the science of forest cultivation, was ignored. Now we're paying the price. Dick Brake works with the Provincial Forestry Service out here in St. George's Bay. Keenly interested in silviculture, Dick is involved in the program to revitalize the forests of the West Coast. So are these two young foresters, now checking over the growth in a forest plantation that started as an experiment a few years ago, in the days when such programs were laughed at.
They're pretty well all doing great. You got some real good leader growth up there, and pretty well all the trees are doing well here.
That one there had some kind of an insect problem, but it seems to be getting over it now.
Yeah.
I guess this is the type of plantation.
Wayne is supervisor of silviculture with Bowaters.
That's right. Well, we're hoping for this, for sure.
Bill is with the Canadian Forestry Service.
Roughly how old right now?
It's about 14 years right now.
14 years' time, we'll be able to walk through the plantation on the burn, and this is what we'll be walking to.
That's right, yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
I think it'll do just as good as this for sure.
The roar of a power saw is a common enough sound here in the land of the logger. They aren't usually hacking down little trees like these, though. Most of these sticks wouldn't qualify as Christmas trees, let alone pulpwood. This is a silviculture program, a stand conversion by Abitibi Price on their holdings near Flat Bay. All these trees are being removed. Later they'll be replaced with other species. Why? Well, here's the man who should be able to tell us all about it, Dick Brake.
Dave, down here is a good example of what our overall objectives are in doing the stand conversion. As you can see right here, these young fir here, they're about 5 feet tall and they're about 15 years old. Now you can see back here in the background there's a black spruce, which is the species we're moving to in our plantations. It's the exact same age and it's twice as tall, or more than twice as tall, 10 to 12 feet. So you can picture a plantation of spruce here, or if this entire area was a spruce after it was cut originally, we'd have a stand that would be 10 to 12 feet high rather than this heavily infested fir, which is only 5 feet high.
So really the aim is to change the forest out here in St. George's Bay from balsam fir to black spruce?
Yes, we're doing a stand conversion from balsam fir to black spruce. A tree like this is a prime example. Here we have a tree which started off healthy until it was 7 years old. It grew quite well, and these whorls here indicates the amount of growth that it gained each year.
So
right here.
It was growing about a foot a year.
Yeah, it was growing approximately a foot a year for its first 7 years to this point here. And then it became heavily infested with balsam woolly aphid, which, by the way, you can't see other than with a microscope. You can't see with the naked eye. Now, from here, at age 7, the aphid infestation took over. And now, in the past 9 years, from this point for the next 9 years, it only gained about 1.5 feet of growth. So its average is down to just a couple of inches a year from, in the past 9 years, from 12 inches in its first 7 years.
So that's a very sick tree.
Right, so this tree is very, very unlikely to reach merchantable size and ever be useful for pulpwood and definitely not saw logs. It will reach over maturity and die of old age before it becomes merchantable.
And so this forest, thick and rich and green though it be to the untrained eye, is in reality doomed, nipped in its youth by insects, aphids that burrow in the branches and terminal shoots, sapping the tree's energy, stunting its growth, making it commercially useless. So down they come, acre after acre of fir forest leveled, to make way for the tougher, faster growing and more valuable black spruce. Of course, you can't just leave all these trees lying around. With up to 50,000 stems to an acre, there's a mountain of slash left when the cutters move out. That's when these machines move in. Skidders, especially equipped for brush clearing. We watched this one in action near Loch Leven. It's the fanciest rake you ever saw. Hydraulic cylinders control huge retractable teeth. These respond to pressure so that the machine won't hitch in stumps and tear up the ground. The giant rake moves back and forth, pushing the brush into windrows. Here the slash dries in the wind and the sun, till sometime in the fall, when the forestry people decide that the time is ripe to get rid of it all.
Here we have the future plantation area with the windrow, the slash raked up into windrows. We're burning off the windrows for several reasons, mainly to give greater access for the planters and ease in planting, getting around. Number two, we get more area to plant by removing the windrows. And number three, by removing the slash now, it reduces our fire hazard in the future in our plantations. Like in the summertime, in a plantation, these windrows would be very hazardous and could likely catch fire and destroy the plantation, but removing them now, we remove that hazard.
Seems strange that forestry people are out setting fire to the woods, but I guess it's part of forestry, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, things are changing. You know, we've moved from a protection agency totally to using fire as a tool to help us in our silviculture program, just like you're seeing here.
Some people now would be amazed. They would worry about the danger, but you must have calculated this pretty carefully before you.
Yeah, well, it's mid-September, and we're expecting rain later today, and rather cold last night, high humidity. We've got fire pumps set up and some experienced fire crews here, so the hazard is reduced. It's quite low right now.
Oh, it's only the windrows are burning today, is it? There's nothing in between?
No. The idea is just to get the windrows, and hopefully nothing will burn in between.
How clean does this burn now? Does it actually burn all the wood that's piled there, or is there still some remains afterwards?
After this is burnt, our experiences in the past, is you'd be able to walk right through there, and there'd probably be just a couple of sticks there or whatever, and you'd have no problem passing through there like you would now. To walk over one of those piles is quite hazardous and causes a lot of difficulties for our planters, but when the windrows are burnt, you can pass through there quite easily.
So you'll increase the acreage, too, available for planting by doing this, won't
you? Here, approximately 15% of our plantation area is occupied by windrows. So by burning them off, we regain that 15 to 20%. Yeah.
Just down the road a ways, in a place that had been raked and planted a few years ago, a team of young women from Flat Bay were hard at work.
This is a spruce plantation that was established last spring, and there's a number of species in here that compete with our planted spruce. And the idea is to remove those species so they don't compete with the spruce. So basically it's comparable to a weeding in a vegetable garden. We're just leaving what we want and removing things we do not want. Yeah.
Bill Alexander and Dick Brake look hopefully to a new era in forestry. But when they meet men such as contractor Gus Colburn, who logged this country years ago, they're naturally curious about how it was done in the early days.
They're exceptional by most standards along this part of the coast, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yes, like all that you see over there, always left, you see them old birches.
Yeah.
Well, that's all was left here when I logged there. It's all just the same as we're standing out now.
Mm-hmm.
You can look here and look right on across the country.
That's right.
And look how it's grown up now.
Yeah, healthy looking forest.
Yeah,
healthy.
Yeah.
Is this where you had your camp, right here?
That's the campsite right here.
It's right where you had
Cookhouse was there with that, with the road still. That was the cookhouse and the wood grub shed. This was the bunkhouse here.
Yeah.
That was the barn over there.
So this is why most of this timber out here is older than the stuff inside. You operated here with horses back.
Oh yeah, in 56.
From axe to bucksaw to mechanized logging, such men have seen remarkable changes in the lumber woods. But perhaps the biggest changes are yet to come. Bill Alexander took me through a plantation.
Okay, this area was originally cleared in 1978 and prescribed, burned, and planted in 1980. So this plantation is roughly 5 years. Well, it has 5 growing seasons under its belt right now. It's doing really well by our standards, far better than we expected. Well, if you take a look at this tree here, he's doing really well. If you count back 3 years' growth, 1, 2, 3. So he's grown pretty well, going on 4 feet in 3 years. So that's really well by plantation standards. We think that we can triple production on a lot of our forest lands over natural succession. But on our plantations, it's really hard to say. I would say we'd at least double it. We'd at least double what the land is producing now. And in the Bay St. George area, where we have a serious aphid problem, I would say we'd more than triple it, because right now our forests in that area are just doing nothing.
Those trees out there are pretty scruffy, aren't they?
That's for sure. They'll never do anything in our lifetime. And these, well, they're Japanese larch, the ones you're looking at right now, are just phenomenal. They're probably averaging better than 2 feet a year in height growth, and we expect probably that tree would almost produce a sawlog dimension or pulpwood dimension within 30 years. They're 17 years from seed, 14 years planted in the field, and they're at least 4 times the height of our insect damaged trees.
Why is it important to look to new species like this, Bill? Is it because of the competition we're getting from other countries?
That's true. In the southern U.S. and South America, countries such as Brazil, they're growing trees on from 5 to 15-year rotations, and we're going to have to compete with that sooner or later.
Doubling, tripling the production of our forests. Impressive goals. For our paper companies, forest management is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity.
I don't feel that our mills are going to be around in 40 years' time if we don't intensively manage our forest lands now. We can't hesitate. We have to do it now.
I'd heard of the Serpentine country before. This was the first time I'd seen it. A magnificent range of red rock mountains and green sheltered valleys just south of Corner Brook. The hills near the coast were haloed with mist. Stretching inland for miles, a broad, rich valley clothed in forest. Well, actually, the valley was only partly clothed in forest. Some of it was cut over. This is logger's heaven, and the paper company in Corner Brook knows it. Choice wood close to the mill. It's a sensible place for logging in these trying times, but it's also a perfect place to begin a silviculture program, for the site is rich and promising. And so, in Serpentine, the paper company harvests the old timber and looks to the future.
But this area is probably, for site quality in this province, is probably about the best in the province in terms of its ability to grow trees. It's a very rich area, and one that we feel that we ought to make sure is managed very intensively for forest management.
And that's why you're coming in here with your silviculture practice.
That's right, yeah. Our silviculture program has got to be based on doing your most work on your best sites close to the mill, and this certainly fits the heading for that. It's the very best sites, I would say, in the province right here, and it's certainly close to our mill, and one that we want to put a lot of emphasis on. The trees, not only are they huge, but there seems to be a lot of species, both trees and particularly ground vegetation, that I haven't seen anywhere else in the province here.
Wayne, do you think forestry practices then are compatible with the beauty of the country in here? Do you think forestry will ruin it, or can it be done and still kept intact?
Well, I guess it's always a bit of a sensitive thing. People always associate logging as being contrary to beauty, and I guess the initial cutover probably is. But cutovers don't stay as cutovers, and there's nothing looks more beautiful than a well-managed stand. And I think a cutover is just it's a very temporary type thing for sure. And once it is managed intensively, well-spaced trees and whatnot, it'll look as beautiful as it was before, and at the same time it'll be useful and productive. A cutover itself will regenerate. They regenerate well on their own. There's already trees on them now after they're logged, and eventually they'll be thinned out and managed, and in perhaps 10 or 20 years they'll look as beautiful as they ever did. This particular section right here, now we've been fortunate in that we could leave this till last. We're cutting it now not because it's insect kill certainly, but because simply it's over mature. And the quicker we can get the area cut and back into under a new forest management, into thinning, and well, the better it's going to be. Right now, it's not in a very productive state.
Wayne, I noticed there's quite a few young seedlings around. They weren't planted now. That's not part of your silviculture program.
No, right. Particularly with balsam fir, one of the advantages of it, I guess, or one of the peculiarities of balsam fir, is that it regenerates on its own. And you'll see right here, we have what we call advanced regeneration, and these are young seedlings that seed in before the stand is actually cut. And what happens when the stand is eventually cut? Light gets at the forest floor, and these things release, and we have a new forest back again. So this is typical of all West Coast balsam fir.
So you don't have to plant everywhere here in the West Coast?
That's right. No, that's a misconception that a lot of people have. They figure for every tree you cut, you should be planting one, and in most cases, certainly in balsam fir, there's a lot more than what you really need, and in fact, we end up having to have a thinning operation.
Look at how thick this forest has grown. While in some parts of central Newfoundland, the cutover forest cries out for transplants, the western and coastal forests are often choked with regeneration. In some places, 50,000 trees struggle for survival on 1 acre of forest soil. The ideal number for a pulpwood stand is 1,000. On such sites then, 49 out of 50 trees should be eliminated.
This area was logged in around the mid-40s, probably somewhere around 1944-45, and it's a stand that's developing in its natural way. You've got a lot of it takes 70 years for a tree to grow. Most of that time is spent in killing the trees, killing after a competition. It takes a long time. Most of these stems here, a lot of them are already dead, and a lot of them are going to be dead before the stand is mature, just through the process of competition. So this stand right now is 38 years old, and had it been thinned back when it was 10 years of age, right now it would contain about 50 cords per acre and be very merchantable and ready to log. Right now it's only got probably about 12 cords per acre, and we've got to wait another 30 years before we can log it. This is an area now that we thinned in 1978, which is 6 years ago now, and primarily all balsam fir.
Stumps there now, Wayne.
Yeah, what you're seeing here now, you can see the stumps of these were approximately the size of the trees when this was initially thinned, probably about 2 inches in diameter or so around there. You can see the original stumps, and now this is a crop tree, and this is what 6 years has done to that particular tree there, and where it's been released from its competition. So you can see the original densities here were quite high, but when you release trees from density, they really take off. Okay, now see, Dave, you can see where we thinned it. Looking at the growth rings, there's one growth ring per year certainly. And you can see that if you look back at the stump, this is where we thinned it in 1978, and you can see the big increase in the ring width from since that time. Each year the ring width is getting greater and greater.
So this is the last 5 years, say, from here out?
That's right, yeah. The last 5 years since we thinned in 78. Well, actually there's 6 years there since 1978. But the ring widths have gotten much more wider because the tree has had room to grow now. And wider ring widths certainly translate into larger trees.
So the rings are at least twice as wide as they were before?
That's right, yeah. We're finding on our thinning, even on the early responses now, that we're getting in the order of around 150% growth increase just from our thinnings and the early stages so far. It means we can grow a pulpwood-sized tree in a shorter period of time. So we reduce our rotation age from 70 to, in this case, at least down as far as 40 years. So 35 or 40 years, but we'll say 40 years our rotation will be in this particular area. We in fact speculate that we're going to be tripling our productivity here. We'll be growing in excess of 1 cord per acre per year, whereas right now in a natural stand we'll be lucky to get 1/3 of a cord per acre per year. We do have a wood shortage coming in 30 to 40 years from now, so what we want to do is speed up our younger stands to be ready in time for us. So we're bridging an age class gap here, so we're making our younger stands grow faster. And that's the whole objective of our thinning program.
In places where insect damage is severe, more dramatic methods must be used. Here in Bottom Brook, a new technique, the Hilly torch, was used for the first time in Newfoundland. It was like a scene from a war movie. The burning gel raced through the brush till the entire hill was ablaze and smoking. The aftermath, it was not a pretty sight. Yet, at least, the stunted, insect-ravaged forest was gone. And in this desolate, blackened landscape lay hope for the future. For when the ground cooled, teams of men and women armed with young spruce trees came to Bottom Brook. And the forest was reborn. Once, such work would be scorned. But not anymore. Our forest is sick, and this is its only chance for survival.
There has to be a commitment towards silviculture. I think the day of harvesting without any thought to reforestation and keeping our industry here in the future is gone. We have to practice intensive forest management. We have no choice.
And so, 5 million trees have been planted in Newfoundland this year. The long-range aim is for 15 million a year. It's a desperate attempt to revitalize a sagging industry, an industry that means so much out here in western Newfoundland. To logger-turned-planter Mark Legge of Flat Bay, it's more than a job. It's an investment in his own future.
It's a bit dirty. It's in a rough place, but pay is good. If you want to make bonus, there's $1 to be made.
And you're helping the forest in the future?
Yes. I guess helping the forest in the future, and never can tell, probably sometime I might end up in here cutting it.